Everyone, Maligned here, and today I'm going over the starting classes. I won't be showing any gameplay footage, but I'll be focusing on showing the armor types, the weapon types, and the perks used by each starting class. I'll also be giving advice on what situation you want to use these classes for. I'm going to break it down step by step, and I've highlighted the things I will be talking about. We'll move down the list in the order that they were unlocked. Starting out with the footman here, who is going to be the most defensive of these four classes. We'll start with the armor. He has medium armor on, which has plate covering his chest and head highlighted in blue, mail which covers his shoulder and back highlighted in light blue, and leather which covers his arms and legs in brown. Over on the right in the box we see his weapons and perks. The first gray box with no picture tells us that he has no main weapon. His secondary is a one-handed sword, in this case a Castillon sword. He also has a dome shield, which you can see on the character. Let's move on to the perks here. We see the main perk trees in the red box and the secondary perks for each in the yellow box. Each main perk has two sub-perks. The first one is Man-at-Arms, and this is the main melee perk. And we have for sub-perks Shield Breaker for more damage to shields, as well as Break Block, which makes opponents drop their parries when you hit them with a fully charged strike. Shield Bearer allows you to carry a shield. Shield Wall and Shield Expert makes the shield stronger and lets you move quicker while blocking. Surgeon is for better bandaging and reviving. Sterilized bandages make the bandages heal you to full health, and Barber Surgeon lets you revive allies faster. I won't get into the infantry and officer training, but these are pretty standard. Infantry just basically means you aren't riding around on a horse, and officer training is for casting buffs and squad perks in TDM and Conquest, as well as pitch battle. The footman is the first class you get, and it's a class you will want to use until you're able to attack and defend yourself effectively. The shield really simplifies blocking and makes it much easier for you to focus on the enemy, learn how to aim and land your attacks more effectively without having to worry about four-directional blocking as well. You won't be doing a whole lot of damage, but it's a great class to learn with. The opponents you'll need to look for this class will be the ones wearing light or medium armor. All swords are quite weak against plate because only the thrust attack actually does reliable damage, and with one-handed swords it isn't a whole lot. It's only around 10 or 15 on a strike to the chest. You can do quite a bit more if you hit the face, but that's the same with every kind of damage. Try to hunt down those archers and other new players such as yourself who are running around with the footmen, the guardsmen. Just try to avoid the plate users because you will find yourself quite overwhelmed and inadequate against them. We'll move on here to the next class, the guardsman. The guardsman is a much more offensive class than the footman because he has this two-handed Scottish sword that he carries with him as his main weapon. He wears the same armor as the footman, he only has a different helmet. This one's called a barbute. It's actually quite nice because you don't have to worry about leaving your visor open, but it also leaves your face a little bit more open than the sallet that the footman was wearing. For his weapons, he's carrying that Scottish sword that I mentioned as his main, as well as a one-handed arming sword. First perks, he has the Man-at-Arms because he's a melee class. He has the same Shield Breaker sub-perk, but his second perk is Riposte. Riposte is a nice perk because after you parry someone, which is when you block with one of the four-directional blocks, your next attack will charge up faster. It won't swing faster, but it'll get to a higher damage and penetration rating faster than if you didn't have this perk on. The biggest difference here is armor training, which reduces the encumbrance, making him slightly faster. He has thick skinned, which increases his armor absorption, and regenerative, which reduces the time it takes to heal yourselves to 4 seconds down from 6. This is used interchangeably instead of the shield bearer. You can only have one or the other. Personally, I'm a big fan of armor training as opposed to using shields. Because of the fact this guy is much more offensive than the footman, you need to know how to land your blows to use them properly. This is a great class to learn how to parry because swords are pretty sturdy in comparison to other weapons in the game. This class is going to be a lot more fun than the footman. The sword can do a very high amount of damage to lightly armored targets on the swings and plate users on the thrust, meaning you're going to get a lot more kills and just generally have more fun with it. The two-handed sword has a fairly long reach to it. and because the entire blade is a hitting surface, you really don't need to worry about hitting your opponent with a particular part of the weapon, as you have to do with the Foot Knight that I'll show a little later. All that being said, if you're going to be using a two-handed weapons and not a shield, you really need to learn how to parry in addition to working on your footwork, and this is a really good class to start with learning that. On to the longbowman here. He's wearing light armor, which has mail on his chest, which is in light blue there, cloth on his arms and legs in yellow, and leather on his feet and hands and head in brown. He has a bow and the requisite perks to use it. Really, he's a very mediocre range class. If you want to be a bowman or a crossbowman in this game and be effective, buy the game. This class just isn't really that good. Well, myself and Paradox have saved the best for last, and that's the Foot Knight. He's wearing plate armor, which covers his entire body with plate except for the few areas I highlighted. This makes you almost impervious to swords with the exception of the thrust attack. The groin, armpits, and neck are really the three places you want to aim at on this armor in order to do the most damage, whereas the neck is the best place to hit because it has no protection on it. While the plate is cool and very helpful for newbies, the best part about this class is that main weapon. The poleaxe is incredibly deadly and very versatile weapon, and a lot of experienced players use it actually. It has a bladed side which does a lot of damage to leather, cloth, and mail, as well as being pretty decent to plate, does quite a bit of damage to plate as well, and the blunt side, which as of this moment does an incredible amount of damage to plate, but a lot less damage on leather and cloth. It has this long spike on the end, which gives its thrust some extra range, in addition to them being quick and damaging. The key to using this Foot Knight relies on correctly using your footwork, having good footwork, keeping enemies out of your face and in range of your weapon so they don't just hug you and spam you, and being able to reliably hit with the head of the weapon. It's the only part that does damage, unlike swords, where it's the entire blade does damage. If you don't hit with the head of this weapon, you'll just hear a bonk sound. You'll get a shaft hit. And also, switching your weapon back and forth between those two sides. Using the blade on the cloth, you can get decapitations as well as just generally doing a lot more damage, and using the blunt side on the plate you'll do a lot more damage, and you can get instant kills by hitting him in the face with it with a full charge, and those are really quite satisfying. This weapon is very capable of getting instant kills, as I just said, and decapitations. It has a very fast thrust, and it's also very strong thrust. And it usually downs opponents in about 3 hits, sometimes less, sometimes a little bit more, but you can take people down very quickly. It takes a good amount of practice to land strikes with the head of the weapon. Up until now you've just been using swords, which are very easy to hit with, but they're not very damaging because of it. And you also need to be very good at parrying with this weapon, because players with weapons that have shorter reaches like sidearms, they could try to get very close and hug you, and you can't land strikes when they're right up in your face. So you need to know how to parry them and get them out of your face. If you're trying to get good at the game and are looking for a more skill build that'll let you take down opponents with ease, then you want to learn how to play with this kit. It takes a lot of practice to use it correctly, but when you do, you'll have the necessary knowledge to use almost every weapon in the game and have the requisite skills to actually be considered a decent player. Well, thanks for watching. I know it was a little dry, but subscribe for updates, and point any of your friends or trial players you run across to my videos in hopes that they learn how to play the game better. And to all the new members, if you like the game now, then I'll tell you to strongly consider buying it. The best part of this game is when you get into customizing your character, using all the new fun weapons and armor, and really just kind of playing around and killing people, making friends. This game has a pretty good community to it. This has been Mr. Trackball Gaming Maligned here, and have a good one and keep playing.